Hey, I'm Jack, host of the new comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, from How Stuff Works. A little bit about me. I've listened to almost every episode of Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. I'm the co-founder and was the editor-in-chief of Cracked for the last 11 years. And our show is basically the day's news and pop culture filtered through a brain that contains all the information that entails.
And I'm Miles Gray, Jack's co-host, a former political operative and pop culture addict, like something I actually take medication for.
He does. And sometimes he's a bunch of different people, like Michael McDonald.
Tell him he's a stranger.
Japanese radio DJ.
Minasan ohayou gozaimasu, Midas desu.
And Making a Murderer's Brendan Dassey.
Yeah. No.
Just a fair warning, guys, you're going to learn a lot, but some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's really good, is our catchphrase. We're still working on it.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
We do a proudly weird show around here. We've got Owen Wilson today. He's not of sports. We got Ron Magill, the zoo guy. He's not of sports. And then, weirdly, we've got Chris Sims ranking the 70 best quarterbacks in the NFL, starting with number 70.
Yeah.
Blake Bortles. One of the weird things happening right now here on a Greg Cote Tuesday is some people are paying their grid of death punishments. Chris Cote. It was a bloodbath last night. The Patriots lost. The Patriots were a big favorite. Patriots lose to the Dolphins 27-20, Monday Night Football. And that meant instant death for a bunch of people around here. And if you don't know what the bucket of death is, it's a suicide pool where we have to do some sort of shame-ridden thing or difficult thing. And two people are paying the penalty right now. Fat Chris has to drink cold soup from a can all show. What did you choose? Were you able to choose the soup, or it had to be tomato soup?
Yeah, it was tomato soup.
All right, so cold tomato soup from a can? That doesn't sound good, right? That sounds unpleasant?
Yeah, it sounds awful.
I actually don't hate tomato soups, but I've never had it cold. So we'll see.
Full of sodium.
All right, so put it on the poll. Does it sound like much of a punishment to have to drink a cold can of tomato soup from the can? That's one of the easier punishments. Now, Stugotz thought he was selecting an easy punishment, but we learned all together as a show about a minute and a half ago that wearing a straitjacket for the entire show is going to make this a very difficult show for Stugotz. He can't look anything up.
Nope.
He can't even put his headsets on his own head, and they were falling off a lot during the break. So if his headset falls off, someone's going to have to fix it during the show.
Right. I underestimated how difficult this one would be. I thought it'd be easy. I thought it'd be a breeze, but you're right. I can't go on the internet. I can't communicate with Mike. I essentially can't do anything. So
right. Stugotz is bad. Stugotz is bad under all circumstances.
Right. I mean, expect the worst day that I've ever had.
But
today,
he can't
right?
look anything up. He can't steal anything. He can't refresh his text machine. He can't. So, Mike, he can't look at how left to his own devices he is. He can't list it. He can't steal stuff from the listeners on the internet, on text, on Twitter. He can't look anything up. He can't refresh anything. And if he wants to discuss things with you in the talkback, he can't do that either. And that's usually where his judgment is. His judgment's in the talkback. If he's not sure about something, Stugotz will, in the talkback, ask the room, is this good? Is this funny? Can't do any of that.
Yeah, I'm just going to air it all out today, man.
Today, he's going to let it fly.
Yep.
He's just going to let it fly. So Stugotz is wearing a straitjacket all show, and you should listen to see where and how the show fails. We might actually develop a new appreciation for Stugotz and the way Stugotz does his job, because right today, more than ever, he is just sitting here, and it's so hard that he just got an itch on his nose, and he scratched it on the microphone.
I don't know what to do, man.
Yeah.
And the microphone did not help. So I don't know.
The itch spread?
Yes. Well, the itch, yes. Well, first off, no, the itch was never relieved because the microphone did not help.
Come over here. Let me help you.
Oh, nice. You're going to scratch my nose.
Yes,
okay.
I don't think that's nice.
It's right. It's on the inner left nostril, dude.
All right. Oh, no. No. I'll get it from the outside.
I'm joking. It's right on the front here.
All right.
Right on the front. Right there. Yeah.
Oh, it's like a dog being petted.
All right. So,
thank you.
Oh, my God. That was unpleasant.
Wash your hands.
Yes.
Good-looking jacket, though.
Thank you.
It reminds me of the Nehru jackets I used to wear in the 70s. Those were fantastic. Nehru jackets.
Yep. I'd support you here and look it up and do something with it, but I can't. Yeah,
right. Anybody else ever wear a Nehru jacket? Let me look that up. Google it. Nehru.
Are you aware we're doing a radio show now and not just sitting around talking?
There it is. Beautiful.
You know, tomato soup's kind of thick when it's cold.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Ooh, is there any congealing in it? Is it?
It's not a liquid.
Ooh. Oh, wait a minute. So now you're like slurping like it's ice cream? Oh,
man. Oh.
The taste is not terrible, but it's just like the weirdest consistency.
But man, texture matters with food.
Oof.
Texture. I'm sure eel or whatever, or some of these things that people. I'm sure that some. What is the chicken liver? Do you like chicken liver, Cody?
No, I don't. Better than beef liver, though.
I mean, just texture matters,
and
so does knowing what the mind is an interesting thing. Oh, Stugotz is itching again.
Oh, man,
if he starts thinking about how confining this is, it's going to become very unpleasant for him. You have to get out of your head how confining this.
Well,
is
luckily, thinking is not a thing for me, so I'll be fine. Yeah,
these Nehru jackets are fresh. There's no way you had one of these. John Lennon had to rock these back in the day.
Oh yeah, he did. They were fantastic. By the way, minced chicken liver is a key ingredient in Cajun rice, dirty rice. That's the only time I ever used chicken liver.
Greg, do you know that we're on the air and like doing?
No, that was a good contribution.
I mean, it was helpful.
It was actually a good contribution. It was a follow up to what you had asked him earlier.
Exactly.
Yes,
you're the one who brought up chicken liver.
Right.
I really enhanced the conversation.
Greg, are you aware that there are other people doing a radio show here? And
I am not.
And your son was. Your son was slurping into the microphone comedically. It's like we're all doing one show and Greg is doing a different one.
Yeah.
That is. Guillermo, can you put that on the poll? Because I think that is the key source of my frustration. Does it seem like all of the guys are doing one show and Greg Cote is doing a different one?
I think it's part of his charm. I do. I think just his general oblivious nature and the fact that he has no idea that we're all trying to do a show in kind of a sing-song kind of way.
We're all working in teamwork, and I don't think Greg Cote realizes what a terrible teammate he is.
Well, you brought up chicken liver.
Right.
Okay. I happen to have a recipe that I really enjoy making that incorporates chicken liver.
Fair.
It's the only time
I brought
up
chicken liver. I did not bring up jackets from the 70s and then go searching for how you spell it while talking on air.
Isn't it Nehru? I think it is. And you're right. Lennon, back in their East Indian days when they would yoga and do stuff like that, smell incense burning, all that stuff, the psychedelic Beatles from circa 67. Big into Nehru jackets. Paul, too, not just John.
I want to talk about this Giancarlo Stanton thing because some people are just hammering me because I went on Scott Van Pelt's show and they said I looked like I was about to cry. It's only it's only because I'd already gotten into the drink. I didn't. And they called me in. They're like, "You want to do a Sports Center?" Oh, no, okay. But I was talking about the things that happened with Giancarlo Stanton as really what's happening right now nationally. And there are very few times that I have felt this in the history of covering sports down here in South Florida, where I just feel alone with something where you're looking at the rest of the country and they're all celebrating something. And you're like, hey, it happens a lot with Cuban issues, obviously.
Right.
But like in this particular issue, I don't think people know the details that get to how you get to the Marlins giving away something that has an extraordinary value, okay? And they're not – Jeter has come – he's been gifted this house by baseball that he can't afford. But magically, the slobs who owned the place before left behind a $295 million art of work and as work of art. And as part of Jeter's renovation plan, what he's decided is that's great. I'm going to put that on the lawn and I'm going to sell it for $5. And I'm going to pay for some of the costs that are involved in sending it to you. And it is so offensive after you have built a stadium for these people, specifically because this should never happen again.
Right.
When taxpayers saved baseball down here with the promise that this would not ever be so again. And so you've got the entire country celebrating something because it's going to be great for baseball. In the Yankee uniform, having those two monsters in the lineup is going to be great for baseball. But what has happened to South Florida here, it feels like prostitution. It feels like baseball has used this market as an escort to gift Jeter a team and to have the bad business the way it was run before by the people before. It was run poorly, so poorly that they parlayed it into $1.1 billion, but they parlayed it into that with about a $400 million debt that Jeter overspent for, and now his solution to them running the business poorly is to correct the business portion by giving away this work of art for something that had no value when he didn't have to do it today. Could have done it a month from now, could have done it 2 months from now, could have kept taking offers for 4 months until the Boston Red Sox realized we need power because we built our team wrong because in the power age we don't have enough home runs, and then you get people bidding. But instead they gave away something that has value, and it's offensive.
He had the no trade, though. So he could have vetoed a trade to
I
Boston.
know, I know, but in the months coming up, you could have built a relationship with him where it's like, hey, your friends, you want to take care of your friends who live in this team and you want to take care of this city that you care about because everybody sees you at space every night, every single night because you do care about the city. You want to take care of it? Let's build a relationship over the coming months and we will get you out of here, but let's have a plan for how we do that.
I agree with mostly.
But they never called him.
I know. Dan, I know. And I agree with mostly everything that you just said, with the exception of, fans everywhere are cheering and celebrating this. Boston is not. Toronto is not. Baltimore is not. There are plenty. Cleveland is not.
I'm saying it's good for baseball.
And, listen, I'm a Mets fan, and I'm excited to watch the Yankees play baseball because of this lineup.
And so am I.
But I don't expect. But I don't. Unlike you, and maybe you don't. I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't expect people around the country to A, be informed about this team, and B, care about what's happening to this team in the city.
And that's all fine. They don't have to care. But when I voice it, the reaction is a caring one when you tell me you're mocking me because you say I look like I'm about to cry when all I'm doing is presenting facts in front of people. This was not an emotional thing I was doing yesterday. I was presenting facts that I don't believe the country knows as they're applauding. Woo! Look at this, Stanton, the MVP. The Yankees got the MVP. I'm putting facts in front of them. It's what I'm talking about. Sometimes I feel it's very rare in Miami that I feel alone with something, and you're looking at the television, and it's like, wait, no, people don't understand what just happened down here. What happened down here was immoral. Like that. There is no disputing that when there are taxpayer dollars involved and they build you a stadium and the promise is you're going to run your business better, the only solution to running your business better is taking that stadium and bleeping South Florida at every turn. And I say that unemotionally. I'm saying that based on the facts of the people before were clowns. They were dopes, and they parlayed $10 million because baseball wanted him in the club to $1.1 billion running their business wrong. So wrong that Jeter had to overspend for it, was gifted a team by baseball, and now his first solution always is, bleep these customers because he doesn't care about them. And in the interim, what he's going to do is trade the best player in the league to the team that he used to work for. That's what just happened here. South Florida got bleeped. Up and down got bleeped. And baseball should know it, and the United States should know it, because that's what happened.
Dan Le Batard.
When did we stop, and why did we stop throwing rice at weddings?
I think it's been fairly recent, and there's a specific reason for it, but I'm not sure what it is. I think you could put an eye out by throwing rice. That's for starters.
I think it has something to do with being bad for birds. I could be wrong.
Stugotz.
I think that is it. Plus, Uncle Ben objected to it as well. It's a misuse of his product, okay? Uncle Ben's converted rice is high-minded. He wants it used for a pilaf, just for a beautiful side dish, not to be thrown like a rag.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Greg Cote in with us all show today. Stugotz is in a straitjacket. Chris Cote is drinking soup from a can, cold soup from a can as part of his grid of death punishment.
Seems to be enjoying it.
Not really.
Yeah, it's not great.
No.
The first few sips, I was feeling good.
Yeah,
and
then, it's a lot of sodium. Yeah. It's unpleasant. How far into it are you so far?
I'd say a quarter.
Okay.
I went hard at the beginning, and I'm going to slow down now.
And is it congealed? Like, is it pasty?
When I shake the can, it doesn't really move too much.
Ew, so you're basically eating a tomato paste gelatin.
That's
what you're doing. Okay. A text writes in, would Dan talk about the NFL Network suspensions? Very interested in his thoughts on the subject. It's inevitable that this would come to sports. Mm-hmm. And it's just starting. And I think if you do, not unlike NCAA investigations, if you start sniffing around any place where men have power, you're going to find despicable behavior. And because we can't be trusted with it. And we've proven that time and time again throughout history. So we cannot be trusted with power. And if you start investigating all this stuff, you're going to find it. You're going to find elements of it everywhere. And so the NFL Network, there are a lot of people named in a lawsuit by a former employee, and it doesn't seem a stretch any of what it is that she's saying. Have you guys read about this story at all?
A little bit. And it's going to climb all over sports. I mean, eventually it's going to be team owners and coaches and everybody.
Right. This is the, I think it's the third story now in sports, right? Started a couple of weeks ago with Greg Zahn.
Greg Zahn, yeah. Warren Moon. Yep. It's slowly creeping into sports, and now it's just the entire NFL Network, except shockingly Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
This is what's happened like in the public with Woody Allen and Trump. They're like, wait a minute. You're like, well, we know those guys. No, we're not going after those guys? All right. Let's just make this arbitrary. Let's just... Woody Allen and Trump have been like grandfathered in. We didn't do that with Cosby. They're okay? Like they're clearly not, right? But that's where we are with this stuff, and it's messy. And everybody who's got a past and skeletons is got to be scared right now.
What's interesting is that there's zero tolerance. If there's an accusation, before it's even investigated, there are suspensions going on.
Yeah, but I think most of these things are investigated. It's not. Don't do that one where it's not he said, she said. Like men are not the victims here. I'm not real worried.
No, I didn't say
I'm not.
No, but like Matt Lauer that was thoroughly investigated right before they just decided to fire the face of NBC.
Yeah, they don't. These things are investigated. It's not just a woman comes into HR, you're fired or suspended. That's not. These things are being investigated, and it's just all long overdue. And it's I'm not interested in talking. Oof. Chris just threw that can.
I have to throw it back to get it out.
Right. It is just a paste. It seems very unpleasant.
Oof.
Can I use a spoon?
Yeah, you can use a spoon.
I'm going to need
to
eventually.
Yeah, I would do that in small doses, really small doses, just little baby spoons at a time.
What are the greatest frustrations that you're enduring as you're in a straitjacket all show today?
Just not being able to use my hands for anything, not realizing. I mean, I probably should, right? We all probably should realize just how important the hands are and the fingers are, and not having the ability to use them is making this very problematic for me. I mean, I have itches. I have to go to the bathroom. There are things to eat. There are things to look up on the internet. There are jokes to steal from the texters. There's a lot to do here, and I can't do any of it.
Right. You also have a booger in your right nostril.
Well, so does Clooney.
Don Le Batard.
Trailers for sale or rent. Rooms to let 50 cents.
Stugotz.
I'm Greg Cote, and that's how it was back in my day.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. And now your SportsCenter update. Monday Night Football, Dolphins beat the Patriots 27-20. Jay Cutler, 263 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tom Brady, 233 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. LiAngelo and LaMelo Ball have reached an agreement to sign professional basketball deals with Lithuanian club Prinio Vitatus. And finally, a Hollywood Catholic elementary school is in some hot water with higher-ups at the Archdiocese of Los Angeles after the school hosted a Lil Pump music video without informing the diocese. The video was for Lil Pump's song Gucci Gang, and it already has more than 240 million views on YouTube. It was filmed at Blessed Sacrament School in Hollywood without the permission of the diocese. In the video, Lil Pump is seen smoking a blunt, carrying bags of weed, and giving out Slazerp, purple drink, to classmates. For all the latest headlines and information, tune into SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
God, I would have butchered that.
Well done, Cody.
Yes.
Stugotz is not reading that because he is in a straitjacket. He did not realize how that would make the the difficulties that would arise with that. A guy has written in, or a person has written in, might be a woman, might not be either of those things. Grid of death punishment idea. The fall pine bomb. You have to hang multiple pine-scented car fresheners on your ears and body for the whole show. The last grid is gone. Greg Cote is going to be the Zardos. If you don't know what that is, look it up on the internet. Sean Connery. It's awful. Billy is going to be the Sting. He is going to be shirtless with a bass guitar all show, and Chris is going to be the color orange. He is going to get painted. His whole body is going to get painted orange. And so the last three things are gone, and now we need new ideas for the new grid coming up. Well, I should say for grids in the future, because we've already got Grid 6.0 in place.
Grid 6.0 is locked in. I can tell you what's on that grid at an appropriate time, but I love Fall Pine Bomb, and I'm adding that to Grid 7.0.
All right, and if you have ideas, the Fall Pine Bomb, you have to hang multiple pine-scented car fresheners on our ears and body for the whole show. We consistently are surprised that these things are harder than we thought they were. Chris is learning that now as he drinks an entire can of tomato soup that seems really pasty. Stugotz, who still has that booger in his right nostril, is learning that because he's wearing a straitjacket.
And today. Clooney still has his. I apologize if I missed this. Who has the Zardos? Who?
Greg Cote.
Oh, this is, wow, what a great day that's going to be. I'm proud of you,
The
Greg.
Patriots lost last night, and when they did, Billy, Chris, and Greg all lost. And so I want you to stop everything you're doing right now in your life, whatever you're doing. And I don't care what it is. Look, man, I'm sorry that there are things burning in your house. Just go to the computer real quick. Google Zardos. Zardos.
Z, that's a fine. Fine.
Google spelling is not a fine for me. I said it, Zardos. I said it correctly.
Oh.
So
is that a fine for me? Because there's no way these hands are getting into these pockets.
It is a fine for you.
I got no money today. I got no hands.
You have money, so now you're fined $2.
All right, I owe you.
No, I'm going to reach in your pocket in a second and grab the $2.
Whoa.
Anyway,
careful.
I want to get into this thing with Giancarlo Stanton because I'm not going to let it go. And all of you who are complaining about the first segment that we did are going to get this basically all show. And I'm just warning you now, we are a Miami show. We are proudly a Miami show. And part of my life mission as a career is to have a voice for Miami on things that mattered. And this one matters because what just happened here with baseball and Giancarlo Stanton, and I'm going to just put facts in front of you all show today so that you understand what happened here and you understand how wrong this is, because I don't mind when people run sports like a business, but when you run it so poorly as a business that the taxpayer is then expected to again and again bail you out, and the new people who come in benefit from that stadium but do things exactly the same way because they were gifted a baseball team. You understand how hard it is to do this combination. Overspend on a baseball team and have it gifted to you. But that's what baseball just did. Derek Jeter bought this team for too much money. He does not have the kind of money that it takes to run this baseball team. This team has been run so poorly in the past that it has debt even with that new stadium because the owner who was owning that team before is about the biggest clown in the history of sports. He cannot be trusted with that kind of money. Baseball allowed him in their club for $10 million, funded him at every turn to get him in the game, and now he cashes out despite being a total dope for $1.1 billion. And the result is he has left the team in such disrepair that the only thing he did right for his business is cash out, because the right competent move that he did is he suckered Jeter and baseball into paying $1.1 billion for that team when it wasn't worth that. And they did it with a Cuban baseball owner as the competition, a Cuban guy in Miami who was promising to spend on payroll and baseball. This is important because I don't think people realize that this happened. He promised to spend on baseball, and baseball turned around and just kept ratcheting the price up of the franchise until Sherman, this Bruce Sherman guy, and Jeter could get in the game because they were always going to give him that team. And they were always going to give him that team knowing he didn't have money, and they were always going to give him that team knowing he didn't have money, and the way he would get money is by profiting off of that stadium that was not built for him. It was built for South Florida.
They wanted Jeter as an owner. Major League Baseball wanted Derek
Correct.
Jeter to have ownership of
So
a
did
Major
Loria.
League Baseball team. Right, and so did Loria. Here's the tricky part, I think, for a lot of fans, including the fans down here in Miami, is Derek Jeter creating a whole new mess, or is he simply cleaning up a mess that was handed to him by the previous
Either way,
ownership?
the new janitor has to have money. You promised us that
That's
when
true.
the taxes built that stadium. Taxes paid for, in many ways, by actual janitors. You took those people's money. You promised them that this wouldn't happen anymore.
Well, Derek Jeter didn't promise anyone
when you got
anything.
that stadium. Baseball did.
Right.
Baseball did. They put the All-Star game here as if that means something. Here, congratulations, you got a stadium. These arrogant rich people, you give them a lot of benefits and they become entitled about receiving them. Hey, we'll give you our All-Star game. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. You bleep the people of South Florida up and down with the way that you did this, and their new owner, Derek Jeter, who doesn't know what he's doing because how could he, just sold Giancarlo Stanton for pennies on the dollar when he did not have to do that. An MVP in his prime, he could have waited months until a better offer presented itself. But why would you think that Derek Jeter is good at business? Why? He's a shortstop.
Right.
Why would you think he's good at business? The solution, as always, is to bleep the fans. Derek Jeter, if you wanted the big boy game, if you wanted the big cash table, where's your money, man? Oh, I know. You're paying yourself $5 million of it in salary. You want to play at the big boy table and you want everybody else to give you the chips. And baseball has. And it's offensive. Like, it's deeply offensive that everyone here, whether you think it's a conspiracy or not, these people conspired together. Whether you think that's the evil term or not, Loria and baseball wanted this to happen. Loria because he wanted his $1.1 billion, baseball because he wanted him to get that price, whatever price you could get the value, no matter how overinflated, no matter how much debt there is to it, even if the people buying it didn't have the $1.1 billion, if they have to take loans out to make this work.
I mean, think about Major League Baseball and their role in this. They wanted the $1.1 billion. Like, look, hey, the Marlins sold for $1.1 billion, and they got Jeter in the game.
But that's why when I say they conspired, people are like, man, he had a no-trade clause. This isn't about sending him to the Yankees. No, these people conspired, man.
Yep.
Like, you need to understand that these people conspired to get a guy through the door because he's a famous shortstop who did not have money. Like, he can't afford this. And so the first solution is to bleep the South Florida customers who built you that stadium. That's the first order of business, even if it means throwing Giancarlo Stanton out there in a yard sale. In a bleeping yard sale. That guy has real value. The rest of the money on his contract is a bargain. If he entered free agency right now, people would be lined up to spend that much the way that they will spend it on Bryce Harper, who's going to get $400 million.
But, Dan, I disagree with just about everything Jeter's done. That's why I'm saying, is he making his own mess or cleaning up a previous mess? Because he was handcuffed with that contract. I know you're saying wait around for a better deal. Stanton can say no to any deal he wants to say no to.
What I'm saying is that the other owner that wasn't forced upon South Florida by baseball was willing to keep that contract. The other owner was willing to keep that and spend and build around it.
Well said. Tone, fine.
Don't give Loria too much credit there. That contract was severely backloaded because and he was given a no trade clause because Loria knew that he wasn't going to have to pay when the contract really kicked in.
That's the other thing about this, that I just don't think people know the facts and the details on this sort of stuff. That's another part of it that's deeply offensive. Loria didn't pay any of the big money in this contract. They signed him and gave him that bad no trade clause that created this no leverage situation for the Marlins. Correct. He did all of that so that he wouldn't have to ever deal with the problem. He knew he was going to sell the team before he had to actually give Stanton any millions. Like, the whole thing is it's not a conspiracy in the investigated sense. It is rich people conspiring to do an immoral thing, which is basically the same thing.
Is the booger still there?
Don Batard.
You decided to celebrate Guillermo's horrible contribution to the show with a hello.
Stugotz.
That's an affirmation. When you get a hello from me, that's like the equivalent of 5 exclamation points or 4.5 smiley faces. Hello.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Owen Wilson going to join us in about 12 minutes on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get in touch with the show anytime to the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed at Batard Show, at Stugotz790, at Greg Cote. Capture the excitement of Christmas morning with 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order 12 peppermint roses for just $29.99, you'll get an extra half dozen and a vase for free. It's a great deal. Check them out today. 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
I think many of you, if I were to ask you, a crew of creative people that you most admire, a crew of creative people, my guess is most of you would take bands or music. But this batch of creative people, Funny or Die, the Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller, Will Ferrell, Danny McBride, this batch of guys that have worked together, I really enjoy their work. And we're going to talk to Owen Wilson about that coming up in 10 minutes. But I want to get your thoughts on the Stanton situation, because I have now gone. I was not actually mad when I was talking to Scott Van Pelt last night, but now I've gotten myself too mad. Like I am.
You really are.
Yeah, no, I've gotten myself to angry. I wasn't last night, but I absolutely was in the last segment.
So this is the
look at Guillermo back there smiling. Welcome to the dark side. Yep. Guillermo was here before me. Yeah.
Yes. But you have the Dan Le Batard that Scott Van Pelt wanted is being delivered right now. Was not delivered last night.
No, I wasn't angry last night, but I've gotten more and more angry about this as I've watched the way New York has gotten to celebrate it, and the way. I've realized, not unlike when Jose Fernandez died and I was crying on television, and you can't trust sports fans with that kind of vulnerability. You can't give it to them. Not unlike when Elian Gonzalez and that whole Cuba controversy, I feel like the nation does not know the facts on this. The facts. I am delivering the facts. I know that I'm pounding the table sometimes instead of pounding the facts, quite literally, but I was pounding the facts last segment.
And I don't blame the nation for not knowing. I mean, you care about where you live for the most part. I think most people do that. What's the thing that bothers you the most? It's the fact. It's the taxpayers paying
it's
the
people
broken
of Miami. Promise on, wait a minute. South Florida did the thing that you said that would forever rescue the business. And now that's South Florida's fault for not getting a contractual guarantee that the payroll would be in a certain place.
Yeah.
The entire time. But that promise was made. The stadium, the whole sales pitch on that stadium was, you will save baseball down here, and you will save good baseball down here, not cheap discounted baseball.
Right.
South Florida was ready to get rid of that baseball.
The people of Miami built that stadium, and many of them don't care about baseball or that stadium or the team, and they're getting built. And that's the biggest problem.
It should be pointed out, though, that neither Bruce Sherman nor Derek Jeter specifically mentioned, hey, we're going to have this payroll, or we're going to raise payroll, or we're going to be the anti-Lauria. All they said was that they're going to rebuild this franchise for the long term. And that's a euphemism for we're going to cut the salary. We're going to make business decisions, not baseball decisions. We're going to regrow the farm system, and we're going to build this for the long run, not the short haul. And that allows them to do what they did with Stanton. The betrayal here is a betrayal of what our assumption was. Our assumption was that these new owners are going to be the anti-Lauria. They're going to ride in on a white steed, and they're going to heroically save everything, and they're going to worry only about baseball and make smart decisions and keep Stanton and build around him. And they had an opportunity to do a compromise. They had an opportunity to pay Stanton for another 3 years, and then after the 2020 season, allow him to opt out.
Hold on. Listen to Stanton in his own words. He'll tell you what was up.
We spoke about the direction of the team. I wanted us to go forward and have an advance with the pitching staff. I thought our lineup was legit, and we needed help with our pitchers, and we needed to add rather than subtract. And the way they wanted to go was to subtract. So I let that be known. I didn't want to be a part of another rebuild, another losing season. And that's almost a guaranteed losing season, taking away what I thought was a great lineup. So, yes, I didn't want to be a part of a rebuild.
So Jeter told him, what do you do with that sound? And he was critical in other ways of the Marlins and management of business.
Again, you hark back to the Lord.
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cote on ESPN.
Hello, the Internet. It's Jack O'Brien, the founder and former editor-in-chief of Crack.com and the host of the new comedic news podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, which, as the name suggests, is daily and sporadically in German. If you like cracked How Stuff Works podcasts and want to get your news from some of the smartest and funniest comedic and journalistic minds around, well then, this show is going to make you all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think we can use that.
Sure we can. Go to Apple Podcasts to listen and subscribe.
Dan Batard.
You can't have fun when you're old?
Stugotz.
Look at me. I'm having a ball. Balling it.
This is the Dan Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
I really enjoy this guy's work, this family's work, really. New movie, Father Figures, opens nationwide December 22nd. Owen Wilson with us on ESPN Radio. Thank you for being on with us. Tell me if I have this wrong, Owen. I don't feel like you do a lot of this. You don't do a lot of grabbing at the stuff or the interviews that come with fame and talk shows. Do I have that wrong? Because I feel like I want to know more about you, and yet I don't feel like I hear you interviewed very often.
You do have it wrong. I do. I'm out there like, P.T. Barnum, just sell. So I'll get out there and bang the drum. In this day and age, you sort of got no choice. You got to get out there.
Do you enjoy that part of it or not really?
Well, it's probably not the favorite part for, I remember, my dad worked at a public television station in Dallas, and, they're always kind of trying to raise money, and, he didn't love that aspect of it. So it feels a little bit like that. You're kind of trying to get people to go see your movie, and, yeah, it'd be nicer just to, sit on the couch and watch a game and have people just show up. But you got to get out there and try to get people to go.
What is your favorite part of all of this, of all your success, of everything you go through? What is your favorite part of it?
My favorite part, I think sometimes, and I'm sure you guys get this also, when you sort of feel like you're in the flow, when you feel like you're sort of, wow, this is like really rolling along, and you're doing something creative, that's a great feeling. And so sometimes you chase that feeling of where it just feels like it's just kind of happening.
I've never heard actors talk of it that way. Usually people, the stop and start of acting is such that they never really feel like they're nailing it or they don't know what's being used when I've talked to them. That's not to say, I've never heard it explained that way.
Yeah. I could see that, because I didn't, study acting in school, and so I haven't really done, plays and things like that where maybe you'd have a chance to even feel that more. But definitely I feel it sometimes where you're, doing a take and, they yell cut, and it's like you just feel like, wow, I feel like I really nailed that. And, of course, sometimes you find out a month later you're going to reshoot the scene, so you didn't nail it. But,
but the creative process, so that sinking into the euphoria of the creative process is where you find the best parts of success.
Yeah, I think the chance to sort of do something creative and that to me is, I can't imagine doing anything else that I would have been qualified to do anything else.
Again, the new movie Father Figures opens nationwide December 22nd. Owen Wilson with us on ESPN Radio. I'm curious, you're an ad-libber, you're an improviser. Does Wes Anderson allow any of that?
He probably less than, maybe in the beginning when we were first working together. And it isn't so much that I ad-lib, people will say that, but it's usually kind of thinking about the scene maybe the night before or the morning of, and there's nothing like knowing that you're getting ready to do something to make your mind sort of focus and concentrate and, maybe come up with some idea. So it isn't so much that right in the moment that you'll say something that you had no idea you were going to say, although sometimes maybe that happens. What's more the case, at least with me, and maybe having started as a writer, was thinking like, oh, you know what, I could maybe try to do, say this line or, have some ideas to make the scene, hopefully sound more believable. So that's what it usually is more.
You've worked a lot with Ben Stiller. Do you guys have any raging arguments? Do you guys have like fights that have resulted in you not speaking for days?
I remember when we were working on the Royal Tenenbaums and Ben said we had a scene and I said, well, maybe you could say it this way or say this. And Ben, kind of blew up at me and said, Owen, this all the time. It gets to be late in the day, you get tired, and you start directing everybody around you. And it's funny because that's not my persona. I think that people think that I'm like a control freak. Apparently, late in the day, I have a tendency to start directing people.
So you feel like you deserve it. You deserve the Ben Stiller.
Well, hold on. Do you agree with that assessment, or is Stiller just being,
a diva?
Yeah.
I think of it less directing and more like, I love this guy, and I know he could do it this way and be even better than he's doing it the way he is doing it. So that's where I would say it comes from. Enthusiasm, not a control freak.
His new movie, Father Figures, opens nationwide December 22nd. Do you yourself have a favorite line from either Meet the Parents or Zoolander?
From Meet the Parents, I guess maybe the line where, Ben is, I built the chuppah, and I say it's built from one piece of wood, and it's this huge thing, so it just sounds ridiculous. And that's funny to me because my dad, was like, was really in, kind of had his, nice suits that he wore and had these great shoes, and he was, he'd, be sitting there watching a game, polishing his shoes, and he had this great pair of English shoes, leather shoes, and he said that they were, from one piece of leather. And I was like, what does that mean, one piece of leather? And I knew my dad didn't know what it meant. It was so obviously something that the salesman had said to him. Mr. Wilson, these are from one piece of leather. And so he was just repeating it back to me, and it always stuck with me. And so then when I found myself in that scene going, yeah, I built it from one piece of wood.
That is great, because I was actually thinking, I'm always doing this with you. The way that you looked away from your ex-girlfriend and his current fiance.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I still, like, it was, it's not Daniel Day-Lewis, but I believe it to be the finest thespian working right there. The way that you looked away. Do you remember the exact line?
Oh, I remember where I get lost in a reverie kind of, and I go, oh, she was a tomcat.
It's such a great word. It's such
what is this guy looking at? Like, as I'm looking out on the horizon, just imagining the passionate times that I shared with his girlfriend.
It is. But how much of that, like, how often do you watch your own movies back and laugh at funny stuff like that? Because there's so much of it in both you and your brother's work and just about everyone you work with.
It's not so much watch them back, because it's sort of like hearing your voice on an answering machine. It kind of makes you like a little bit like, makes me uncomfortable. It's more when somebody comes up and says a line, and that then I'll be like, kind of, remember it.
In your crew, who is widely acknowledged to be the funniest, like by the others?
I would say, there's nobody that makes me laugh as hard as Will, and then Vince Vaughn also. And Vince especially also just in real life, just like if you're just walking around with Vince and he's on a roll, I mean, there's just nobody funnier.
Well, I've found him interesting, right? Because to me, there are very few. You work with a lot of interesting people. Who would you say is the most interesting person you've worked with, where you were just sort of fascinated by their manner of being?
I'm kind of interesting, guys. I don't want to.
All right. Well, fair enough. Well, you know what? Actually, no. But see, the thing is, I want to talk about you.
I think he had an answer
there. All right,
though.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, most interesting person. That's like I usually don't think in terms, because interesting sounds more like you would say like, oh yeah, they're interesting. Like, so I usually think more in terms of like who's somebody that I thought was really funny or that I love being around.
Was De Niro interesting? De Niro?
Yeah, he's pretty quiet. When off camera, you're not going to be, talking a ton together. But, of course, what happens also sometimes with somebody like that, when you're doing a scene with them, and I remember this happening with Bruce Willis on Armageddon, in the scene, you're of course, you're trying to be in your character doing it, but you're also seeing this person and you're seeing expressions and you're like, oh yeah, I know that expression. I've seen that expression in this movie and stuff. So it's a little like disconcerting, kind of. And I remember in Meet the Parents, like, and Ben laughs about this, like when I had to sort of turn around and I'm telling everybody about my house, and I turn and I see De Niro just sort of staring at me, and I just lost, the memory of all my lines, and it was just kind of gibberish coming out. But I mean, it's like, imagine turning around and there's De Niro just staring at you.
And he's been quiet the whole time. Like there was no shaking hands, buddying around with him. It's not like with Stiller. Imagine him saying that to you.
No, this is like, right, he's intense, I'm actually very friendly, kind of, but it's like the look and everything. Yeah.
Owen, how would you have reacted if De Niro had been the one to say, hey, at the end of a shoot, you start directing everybody, knock it off, the way Stiller did?
Well, Ben actually said that on the Tenenbaums, that you did that to De Niro, even on Meet the Parents. So apparently,
you were directing De Niro.
You were directing De Niro. What's the matter with you?
I do remember the thing, right? Yeah, that's getting. And I was very proud on that when De Niro did start to crack up when we were kind of in there, and Ben said that he's a nurse. This is in Meet the Parents, and I said, I saw a golden retriever that. His paw was hurt the other day, and De Niro started laughing when we were doing that stuff. So that's something to feel good about, getting De Niro.
You cracked him. New movie, Father Figures, opens nationwide December 22nd, and he is interesting as well. Owen Wilson, thank you, Owen. We appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you guys.
All right, thanks, Owen.
Don Le Batard.
Who's the second most famous Frank?
Frankenstein.
Stugotz.
Pretty good.
It's also not his name.
Frank.
Nobody calls Frankenstein Frank.
His friends do.
Of course his friends do. Dracula calls him Frankie.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
So Greg Cote says he's got more to say about this Giancarlo Stanton thing, and I'm just telling you now, nationally, I'm telling you, the country, we will do the normal sports show nonsense, and we will do our show hijinks for the remainder of the show. But when something happens in Miami that we care about down here, we like becoming a Miami show for the national audience. And that's what we're doing today. And I understand if you don't want to be a part of that because you're tired of Giancarlo Stanton talk or don't want it. You want football and other things.
I think this story resonates nationally because of the Yankees' involvement in the story and Derek Jeter, of course. And I think people are just genuinely interested in this story and how it happened.
Well, baseball has an issue, right? I'm really happy for Giancarlo Stanton. Really happy for him. He was a pillar of professionalism while he was in Miami. He handled that press conference great yesterday. And also, it's been great to see him sort of grow up. He was a stiff interview once upon a time. Scared, stoic, statuesque, and it's seen, he is walking into this at this point in his life ready for everything that this brings. He's earned it. He deserves it. He deserves to be a superstar. Baseball has a star problem. This guy's a star. Like, he looks the part, hits the bombs. He's Aaron Judge. Doesn't have the Hollywood that this guy has, where he wants to be in music videos, and he's very handsome, statuesque.
I mean, Judge has some of those qualities. He's only been doing it for a year.
No, but Aaron Judge doesn't have. No, but Stanton's been doing music videos where he's in a bed, shirtless, and a vixen is oiling him up or whatever.
Yeah,
that's not Judge's. That's not Judge's space.
No. He doesn't have the drive to become that. It would appear, and he doesn't have the charisma for it either.
And Stanton also did the body issue where he was wearing nothing but spray
and
paint.
that body, like, he's going to become a sex symbol. He's going to become a star. Like, he is a baseball star, but he's about to become a star. You know how this works. Hell, it's everything in Times Square. The math is different. Everything is, Trump, a real estate agent, becomes in New York. The math gets Times Squared.
Right. Or he could be the fall guy, the person that Yankee fans blame if he doesn't play well and if the Yankees don't play well. Because Giancarlo Stanton has never dealt with this type of pressure, ever.
Thank you, Roy, for getting the Times Square joke. I appreciate that. I was stumbling around trying to figure out how to do real estate agent to president, Times Squared math. I would thank you for getting that.
Yeah, you're a writer. Yeah.
But I'm saying Stanton's now going to get Stanton striking out. Stanton goes through these prolonged slumps. He gave us this great, unbelievable. His face exploded because he got hit by a pitch. And he said there was a time during one of those seasons when he came back, and he was swearing this was so, that he would hear the glove pop. He was so lost that he would hear the glove pop, and he's like, I never saw a pitch thrown. I never saw the baseball because he was so screwed up from his face exploding. And this was in games. Like, this wasn't batting practice. I never saw the pitch. If he goes through one of these slumps now with pressure, he's had that blessing of doing it with very few people caring. Now that's going to stop. But he says he's ready for the challenge. He's embracing it. And let's just listen to some Stanton sound from this press conference, because he didn't go easy on the Marlins. Like, he just said matter-of-factly things that that were ripping the Marlins.
I would say to hang in there. You know, they're hurting. They're going to go through some more tough years. But no, I would advise them not to give up. Just keep hope. Maybe watch from afar if you're going to watch. But you know, those guys are they battle too. You know, the guys that are out there, they're good kids, and you know, they need some support too.
Maybe watch from afar is such great advice. Like, yes. Don't get emotionally attached to anything. Is what like watch from a distance because it's safer.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen now. I think Marlins fans could sort of eat the loss if they thought, all right, Stanton, only Stanton, we keep the rest of the team, keep all these pieces. But now the idea that maybe Ozuna's the next to go, and then somebody else, it's too much.
One of the things, I think the thing that's most offensive about this, Stugotz, the thing that's most offensive is Marlins fans are numb enough that if you traded Stanton and what you got back was the Yankee farm system, even the betrayed Marlins fan would be like, you know what? I understand. I get it. This is not about that. This is about they had a work of art and they didn't have to sell it right now for pennies on the dollar. They could have waited months. If they were billionaires that could afford a $1.1 billion team, they could afford to hang on to him until a better offer comes.
Or just hang on to him.
But that is, yes, or just hang on to him, period. But right. Even if it's not, like, it is terrible business to sell something valuable the way they just sold it, where they paid the Yankees to take him off their hands. That's not the way that transaction can go after you've had a ballpark built for you. I wouldn't be angry if what they got back was the 4 best prospects in the Yankee system, but Derek Jeter just paid the New York Yankees to take the MVP off his hands.
Essentially, that's what he did, right? Because Castro is a guy that they're going to trade him, and the prospects they got are very good. Right. Well, it doesn't matter. They're going to trade him. They're going to trade everyone else.
But you keep bringing up, though, the no trade clause, and what I'm telling you, part of that no trade clause is they didn't have to move him. They chose to move him.
Right. I bring it up, Dan, because they were handcuffed. Listen, the right thing, the smart thing to do would be to keep Stanton and build around Stanton.
They wiggled around the handcuffs. The handcuffs are keeping him. You're claiming they're in handcuffs because he's got a no-trade clause. What I'm saying is that's not such terrible handcuffs that you have to keep the MVP of the league.
I understand that, and they should have kept him. I'm just saying that when the guy gives you 2 teams, it's the Yankees and the Dodgers, and one of those 2 teams don't express any interest in the guy.
Don't trade him now, then. Don't trade him now. It's bad baseball business.
I agree, and watch your tone.
What's worth noting is that Stanton loved living in Miami. From all indications, he didn't want to leave the city. And he was okay with the modest fan support. He just wanted progress with the roster. He wanted a starting pitcher. He wanted a new ownership that's going to go out and maybe spend to get a number one starter.
He didn't want go spend a bunch of free agents. Just keep the guys we got and get a pitcher or 2.
That's what he said. Yes.
And they said, no, we're not going to add anything. He wanted to stay here, and you didn't have to trade him. You traded him because the people before you were terrible at business, and the starting point on your new business running is to always bleep the customer in South Florida when it comes to the baseball mat.
Everyone keeps saying that this deal handcuffed the team. This is not the deal that handcuffed the team. The deals that handcuffed the team are Wei-Yin Chen's 5-year, $80 million deal, where he's going to get 12.6, 22.6, 24, and 16. Junichi Tozawa signed a 2-year deal for $5 million a year and then $7 million a year. Ziegler was going to retire. They gave him $7 million a year, $9 million a year. Edinson Volquez signed a 2-year deal for $9 million a year and $13 million a year on a year he's never going to pitch. They made this mess. Stanton's deal was the best of those deals.
Correct.
And they have cheap players in Ozuna who gave him a .312 batting average, 37 home runs, and 124 RBIs for $3.5 million. They're going to trade him when he's only going to get $11 million, which is still a bargain. Yelich's deal is $7 million, $9.5, $12.5, $14, $15. Good deal for them. Muto made $500,000 last year. In arbitration, he's going to get $4.2. Bohr hit 289.
Oh, I got it wrong!
Yep. Bohr hit 289 with 25 home runs and 83 RBIs in 108 games. He only made $500,000 last year. In arbitration, he's going to make $3.5, and they still have him under team control. Their problems are the bad deals they signed, wasting prospects on Latos, Cashner, and Straley, and then getting nothing back for D. Gordon, Adaney, and now in the Stanton deal. They don't know how to make business moves. They are the problem, not the Stanton deal.
To be the man. You got
Michael Bourne, Bourne Identity. What were you doing there?
It was Bourne Identity.
Yeah.
It was Jason Bourne where I got stuck there.
Okay.
Good facts, Guillermo.
I feel like it was too much.
It was too much.
Not Jeter's fault, by the way, all those contracts.
None of
those deals are Michael Hill deals where they're making these deals.
That's not Jeter's fault, but then tell us that. That's not what they did. That is not what they did. Tell us, hey, you know what? Jeter has done these press conferences when he bothers to speak and when he's not surrounded by 5 people at Marlins offices where no one can get to him, not even Marlins employees. When he has bothered to speak, he has said, well, we weren't managed very well before. Say that then. Say we can't afford the Bruce Chen contract. Say it.
It's not Bruce Chen. Yeah. I mean, just whatever you got in your wallet.
And you know what happened there.
He is hemorrhaging money.
You know what happened there. You know what happened on Bruce Chen.
Yeah, you got a name wrong.
No, but Bruce Chen, you know what happened there.
But everyone keeps saying every owner would do this, and that's not the case. This is the only franchise that's had 4 fire sales in 20 years. It doesn't happen everywhere like this.
Don Le Batard.
I love me some doctors. Have a lot of respect for the medical profession.
Stugotz.
Except chiropractors.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Stugotz is wearing a straitjacket here for the entirety of the show. He just dropped his phone trying to do something with his elbow and the straitjacket, or, where his elbow is in the straitjacket. Texter writes in, Dan, this name thing is getting really bad. I want to laugh, but I hold myself back because I feel like I'm listening to a grown man sink into an abyss. If this is a bit, please tell us. No, unfortunately, it's not a bit. I just knocked over a bunch of forks and utensils in the other room in anger because I'm scared at the amount of names that I am getting wrong around here. And I remember telling you guys, because I got this thyroid medication I'm on like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, whenever I said it, hey, keep an eye on my memory here. Keep an eye with what's going on here because I'm on new medication. And since then, I can't get a name right around here.
Right.
And
well, how's the thyroid, though?
The thyroid's much better. Thank you.
Good.
Thyroid. I appreciate it. The doctor says the thyroid levels are all checking out, so that's good. Unfortunately, it's my brain that's deteriorating. Texter writes in, enough with calling the Stanton deal offensive. It's a business. Keep your feelings out of it. You always criticize the sports fan for being too emotional. I understand it's a business. That's not what I'm bothered by. I'm not even bothered on behalf of the fan. I'm bothered at the betrayal, and I argued on behalf of that stadium selfishly because I wanted South Florida to be Major League. I argued against my better instincts on behalf of taxpayers of Miami. This isn't about my fandom. This is about, or not my fandom toward sports. This is about my fandom toward the city I care about.
Right.
And this broke city, while I was arguing for a stadium, the promise was it will not only save baseball, you won't have to deal with these things that you've had to deal with before. This is different from the goons in baseball and the Yankees conspiring to bleep the Padres or anyone else who got a new stadium. This has been done a number of times, and we were told the solution is a stadium, and it won't happen again. And now not only is it happening again, it's happening in the worst possible way where you're trading the MVP of the league at a time that he's in his prime and has value for nothing because you can't run your business right, so you ask our broke city to run it right for you.
Greg, that's really where the problem lies because I don't think people are aware of that, and nor should they be aware of that. This happened in 97 after they won the World Series when Wayne Huizinga was the owner. It happened again in 2003. They traded away some parts after winning the World Series and beating the Yankees, and Dan's right. The ballpark that is the ballpark the Marlins are currently playing in, was built on the taxpayers' dollars down here in Dade County.
It was built upon that promise. That promise.
Right, with a reasonable expectation that the team would be competitive and spend a reasonable amount of money in order to keep the organization and team relevant and competitive.
That was
and it's not happening.
That was the promise.
No, I agree. And it sort of tortures you to wonder what if on the Jose Fernandez tragedy. Had he not died?
No, they would have traded him too in a year.
It makes you wonder.
No, they would have because they got. I almost said it again. They got Wei Chen. Am I still getting his name wrong?
I think so. Yeah, but we're okay. Let's just move on. Yeah,
it's way closer.
Yeah, Wei, you got the Wei right.
Good.
Yeah.
Good job, Dan.
Wei Chen.
Bruce hasn't pitched since when?
How much money did they give that dude? $80 million.
Yeah, 5-year, $80 million, and it was backloaded. Also,
They weren't
coming off a big year though.
They weren't bidding against anybody. They weren't bidding. They just needed to get to a payroll floor.
That's when Loria got nuts with backloaded contracts because we all saw this coming.
It is his fault.
It totally is his fault.
No, but no, wait a minute, though. See, this is the thing, though. Yes, it's the former owner's fault, and he's the worst owner in the history of South Florida sports, and a dope to boot. But no, baseball enabling him is the problem. Baseball just allowed everything that he did to turn into $1.1 billion for a guy who didn't know how to run that business and failed at every turn running that business.
Right.
Baseball.
He was rewarded.
I don't blame Laurie. I blame the people who empowered him. Man, Sandusky. When you look at Paterno didn't do the crimes, and Paterno was treated like he did the crimes. Baseball did this. Now, they're different crimes, obviously. That probably goes without saying, but that's the medication, too. Let's go ahead, Grim Reaper. Grim Reaper, come in here. Grim Reaper. I think that's going to be my excuse for everything.
Should be, yeah.
My excuse for everything is going to be the medication. There was a dude in a building the other day in South Florida who was in an elevator just totally nude walking around because he didn't know what was happening because of the medication.
Well, what's mine?
What's your excuse?
Yes. Hey, you have yours. I need one. I take similar medication for my thyroid, by the way. I don't know if I'm taking what you're taking, but my brain seems to be just fine. What are you taking? You probably do all that natural stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of natural stuff, but it's the unnatural stuff that might be affecting my memory. So here's what we've got. We've got the Grim Reaper here, and Greg Cote has to go to the bucket of death. If you're not familiar with the bucket of death, it's a bunch of football teams. It's the upcoming games of the weekend. You got to put your glove on, Greg Cote. And he reaches into the bucket, and it's basically a suicide pool. And all the bad stuff is gone from the previous grid.
Saturday game's kicking in.
Yeah.
So,
should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go in there.
Billy, your record is 6-8 this year. That's brutal, man.
That's bad.
Brutal.
That's what Greg's going in. Yes, Greg, we have Saturday night action now. You have the Chiefs and Chargers, a big game, playing game, essentially. Why I threw that in there.
Patriots.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
At Steelers.
They're playing a game they could actually lose.
At Steelers.
Yeah, and they lost for you last week. What are you going to do?
I think they're going to win, but I'm going to put it back.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Man. Coming off a loss.
Steelers are a 2-point dog at home.
I wonder how many times the last time the Patriots.
Browns.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
wow.
no.
They're due.
Payday. It is payday.
They are due. They're
due.
at home, a 7-point underdog against the Ravens. I give them a chance in that game.
They can win that game.
Yeah, they could win that game.
Yep.
Metro PCS. Is it a gift-giving move?
No, they can't, you guys.
Nah, they're due, Mike.
They can win that game.
Yeah,
they were going to beat the
can.
Steelers.
Josh Gordon can win that game.
They can, I guess.
Yeah.
Don Batard.
Have you guys heard this story? Boz Rutan fighting a dog?
Well, I've never heard of Boz Rutan, so.
Boz Rutan's been on the show, Stugotz. The idea that you've never heard of him, he's been on the show several times.
Stugotz.
Is that B-O-Z?
It's B-A-S.
Yes.
B-A-S. All right. I was, because there's Boz Skaggs.
Boy, you guys are dragging this thing right into the quicksand.
Well, why are you pronouncing it Boz, though?
Right.
Probably like Baz or something.
Exactly.
Bass.
B-A-S, right?
Bass Rutan.
Boz would connote a Z, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like a
suggest
Scandinavian
Z. Yeah,
name.
like Boz, like Bosworth.
Boss
Yeah.
Rutan.
B-O-Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
Something about a dog?
What's the dog's name?
Speedy.
Speedy Rutan.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Rob Magill going to join the show in about 10 minutes. Here's a one-of-a-kind trophy. Oklahoma Sooners quarterback Baker Mayfield won the Heisman Trophy on Saturday. He became the 6th Sooner to win the Heisman Trophy, but in a bit of history, became the first player to win the prestigious award that began his career as a walk-on, the College Football Playoff Trophy presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans crave.
Probably should clarify where that Sandusky thought came from. Paterno was responsible for things that Sandusky did by enabling them, by being complicit, by not doing enough. And what I'm telling you, of course, it's a much smaller crime, but what just happened here in the trading of Giancarlo Stanton is not like those two things don't compare. But when you say blame the owner, Luria, on mismanaging, I'd say no. There's another culprit here, and it's baseball conspiring with him to do all of these things. Sure. And so it's not, the blame doesn't just go, it could be spread plenty around, but also Jeter doesn't have money to get into this game. And if you don't have the money to get into this game, then don't be in this game.
Right.
Like, don't just use this game for your own personal profit.
Well, it's Major League Baseball, allowing Jeffrey Loria to run the team the way he ran the team for as long as he ran the team. And now on this end of it, you're right, it's Derek Jeter. When there appeared to be a guy who had genuine interest in the team, George Moss is his name down here. And Major League Baseball so badly wanted Derek Jeter to be an owner. So badly, even though he has no money.
They pushed aside the guy who was going to spend.
Correct.
The Sherman Jeter group had carte blanche down here, given them by the fact Loria had let the entire farm system go, the cupboards had gone bare. That's the ultimate excuse for Jeter, because they can now justify it by saying, we need to reboot. We can't run this franchise without a farm system. And that's code for we don't want to spend.
On Twitter here, someone writes in, Stugotz, I take thyroid medication. My brain is just fine. They're quoting you. Right. I take thyroid medication, and my brain is just fine. Guy who once confused an ESPN colleague with another ESPN colleague twice in one day.
Yeah.
That's
just me. It has nothing to do with the medication.
That's something that actually happened. Keep in mind, Stugotz did First Take with, do you remember whether it was Tony Collins
or
whether it was
Cassidy Hubbard? Yeah, it was Cassidy
Did First Take with Cassidy Hubbard, and then introduced us in the cafeteria to Tony Collins, saying and thinking it was Cassidy Hubbard. And then he did it again later in the day when we tricked him and he didn't know, and it sounded like this. So now Cassidy Hubbard is scampering in here, and Stugotz, what do you have to say to her?
Well, I mean, I apologize. I think the flattering thing for Cassidy is, even though she wasn't there and even though it wasn't her, I was thinking of Cassidy. I mean, that should be flattering.
Well, you want to apologize? She's right here. Thank you. You want to apologize to her face?
I apologize, Cassidy. I really do. I should be apologizing to Tony as well. Hopefully we'll get her.
Do you like Tony, or is she nice, at least?
Tony's very nice. She's from Miami. She went out of her way the last time she was here to find me. The last time I was here.
She is a sweetheart. I really like her, though.
Right. She went out of her way to find me because she's from Miami. She likes our show. She wanted to meet me. That was like a month ago. And you and I did First Take, I don't know, 6 months ago?
But I left a good impression on you, though, then.
You left a great impression on me. I am really embarrassed right now. I don't embarrass easily.
Well, you're about to be more embarrassed.
Oh, no.
A little bit more.
Oh, no.
Because
that's Tony!
That's
not Cassidy!
No!
That is Tony! Cassidy does not look like her. It's the same girl you saw this morning.
We have brown hair, and
that you introduced.
I'm flattered.
Tony, are you telling me I hate all of you?
Tony.
I hate all of you.
You even offered advice to me 2 weeks ago if you need help with anything.
Tony! Stop it right now!
No, don't get mad at her!
Tony, stop it right now!
Don't
Tony,
get mad at her!
I love you.
No,
I
you
apologize. I feel
Cassidy. You love Cassidy.
This is such a bad trick that you played on me, Levitard. How dare you do this to me?
Ryan's idea. How can you not know that this is Tony? I love that last sound so much. Those last two sentences of your outraged, indignant.
This is such a bad trick that you played on me, Levitard. How dare you do this to me?
Ryan's idea.
It is an evil voice.
Gurgling rage. It's as angry as Stugotz has ever been.
This is such a bad trick that you played on me, Levitard. How dare you do this to me?
Sounds like a cartoon.
I thought it was so cool.
It sounds like a cartoon villain.
I thought it was so cool. This is such a bad trick that you played on me, Levitard. How dare you do this to me? Because I'm like the veteran introducing you to everyone at ESPN because I was up there months before. I mean, that's pretty damn embarrassing, no, Greg?
Do they even resemble each other, those two women? Because I've never met either.
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cote on ESPN Radio.
Hey, I'm Jack, host of the new comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist from How Stuff Works. A little bit about me. I've listened to almost every episode of Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. I'm the co-founder and was the editor-in-chief of Cracked for the last 11 years. And our show is basically the day's news and pop culture filtered through a brain that contains all the information that entails.
And I'm Miles Gray, Jack's co-host, a former political operative and pop culture addict, like something I actually take medication for.
He does. And sometimes he's a bunch of different people, like Michael McDonald.
Tell him he's a stranger.
Japanese radio DJ.
Minasan ohayou gozaimasu, Midas desu.
And Making a Murderer's Brendan Dassey.
Yeah. No.
Just a fair warning, guys, you're going to learn a lot, but some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's really good, is our catchphrase. We're still working on it.
Stugotz today is paying a grid of death punishment and is in a straitjacket. It has been very uncomfortable. We've had to do everything for him. Thankfully, he hasn't gone to the bathroom yet during the show.
I did. Thanks, Mike.
But we've had to help him with his hat, with his earphones. Chris, how are you on drinking tomato soup cold out of a can? Where are you?
I'm glad you asked because I'm pretty much done. I got a couple bites here left.
How do you feel? Was
it's unsettling in the stomach.
And how gross was it? Like, how gross was the last little bit?
I've had to force down. The last half was a lot more difficult than the first half.
You're just eating it in chunks?
Yeah, it's oof. And I actually like tomato soup, but not anymore.
Right. Okay. Yeah, this
has ruined it for you?
Yeah. So if you want to talk to Ron Magill, the telephone number is 786-456-4837. Baseball, Rob Manfred, I plead with you. Stop giving teams to owners who can't afford them. Stop giving teams to people in your good old boys club who can't afford them.
He wanted Derek Jeter so badly to be part of it.
Loria too, though. Not just Jeter, Loria too.
I know, but having Jeter as an owner, in some way, in his mind, he thinks it's really good for baseball. Maybe it is. I have no idea.
Well, maybe it is, but that's not the...
Especially Loria wanted Jeter. I mean, Loria's a New Yorker. He grew up a Yankees fan. I mean, he wanted Jeter from the get-go.
Magill, how do you feel? Ron Magill of Zoo Miami, how do you feel about Giancarlo Stanton being traded as a voice and face for Miami? How do you feel about this?
Profoundly disappointed by it. I think Giancarlo was also disappointed. I think he wanted to stay on Marlin. But like you said in his conference yesterday, listen, they told me point blank, you're going to be playing for nobody. He didn't want to play for losers anymore. He wanted to keep that team together. He thought we had a good team to keep together. But once again, it's like freaking Groundhog's Day here with this team.
Mike, you're on with Ron Magill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Ron, I have a question about swans. I always heard they mate for life. Do they cheat? And if they cheat, do they get in trouble?
The monogamous animals, generally speaking, are monogamous for most of their lives, but there have been incidences where they kind of go off for little quickies sometimes with the non-monogamous mate.
What?
Whoa!
Wait a minute. That makes. Wait a minute. That means that means that they're not monogamous.
Well, theoretically they are. Like flamingos are a classic example. Flamingos will pair bond with each other. They'll be monogamous, and then all of a sudden, some guy comes in and just kind of jumps her. She doesn't seem to stop it, and he goes away. So it's kind of like a quickie, but she stays with her mate, and both of her and her mate raise the chicks, incubate the egg, raise the chick. The chick might not necessarily be his chick, believe it or not. So that does happen in the animal kingdom where they do have these Johns for a quickie, and sometimes it's not necessarily with the monogamous mate.
Nick, you're on with Ron Magill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I heard a rumor one time that when crocodiles and alligators go into their hibernation state, they can kind of take their heart rate down to 1 to 2 beats per minute. Is that true?
Okay, first of all, they don't go into true hibernation. Hibernation is a total turnoff. They go into what's called a torpid state, which is kind of like a shutting down, very similar to hibernation, but isn't really the purest sense of the word. They can shut their metabolism down, yes, to where their heart can beat just a couple of times a minute, depending on how cold it is. The colder temperatures sometimes will shut their metabolism down. As cold-blooded animals realize that their metabolism is a direct reflection of the heat outside, which is why you don't find, crocodiles up north, why you don't find reptiles roaming free up north. They go into that torpid state. So in order to survive, not be able to eat, not be able to get any food, they shut their metabolism down to the point where it's not using any calories, hence 2, 3, 4 beats a minute sometimes for some of these reptiles.
How many animals can do that?
Lots of them. Lots of animals can do that. Most reptiles and amphibians can do it, but even some mammals, of course.
Actually, let me ask the question another way. Is there an animal that can do it better than the iguana?
Yeah, there's a type of frog that when the rains stop, they actually go into the mud, they desiccate. They look like they're dead. They look like a dried mummy. And as soon as the rains come, they come back to life. They inflate with water and they come back to life. You'd swear they were dead. They're stiff as a board. They're all like a little prune, all wrinkled up and dead. But basically, when the rains come, they come to life. They inflate and come to life. So it's pretty incredible.
Billy, you're on with Ron McGill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead, Billy.
All right, so I'm at the Columbus Zoo watching the gorilla with my kids through the glass. I sit there for a few minutes, walk up to the gorilla. It takes off to the other side of the glass. It takes off to the other side of the enclosure. Walk up to that side, takes off running away from me the other end. We do it 2 or 3 times. Is that normal, or are my testicles just giant?
He was playing with you, wasn't he?
Well, no, not necessarily playing. What they'll do is gorillas, especially if they're males, silverbacks, they look at things as certain threats. And what they'll do is when they run away, they run on all fours and they put the hair on their arms sticks out. They try to make themselves look larger, kind of like a powerful movement. It's just a way to intimidate you, basically, is what it is. Usually right before they run away, they might slap the glass or slap the side of the enclosure and then run like this big, show of strength. It's mostly big males that do that. When the youngsters are doing it, yes, that's what they're doing. They're basically playing. They're kind of trying to sow their oats and try to show how one day they're going to be king.
Ron, I read that heart monitors on wild narwhals reveal alarming responses to stress by them. What are examples of stress in animals, and how is it identified?
It depends on the animal, Greg. Like you said, narwhals are finding heartbeats cannot, it's nothing like you can see in a narwhal, maybe it's swimming fast or something, but the heartbeat rate indicates the stress level. For something like a koala is an animal that shows very little stress. It may be incredibly stressed out, but I'll give you the classic sign of a koala stress. If you see a koala with hiccups, that is a koala that is stressed out to the max. They don't scream, they don't yell, they don't move real fast, but if they get the hiccups, that is their way of kind of saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to die!" Okay, that's a major stress sign. So different animals have different forms of stress.
Is the koala hiccuping cute? Is a panicked koala cute?
It sounds cute.
It is. Actually, it is. And most people say, "Oh, look, he's got the hiccups." When in reality, the thing is stressed out to the max.
Dominic, you're on with Ron McGill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead.
Hi, I wanted to know, I know there's certain birds that use sticks to get into the tree to get their prey. Are there other animals that use sort of weapons to kill?
Of course, chimps have been very well known for doing that. There's a type of eagle that actually eats the marrow, the bone marrow, in big bones. And what they'll do is they take those bones, they fly them up in the air, and they're not using the bone as a weapon, but then they drop it high in the air onto a rock, purposely drop it on a rock so it breaks the bone so they can eat the marrow. There's also a bird that uses a rock, an Egyptian vulture, and puts it in a beak and slams it on ostrich eggs to break open the eggs to eat the eggs. So they do use different types of tools to get to the food that they want.
Paul, you're on with Ron McGill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead.
Hey, Ron, we know the polar bears are losing their habitat. Not sure if you saw the video recently. But do you think we can create a new ice cap out of the plastic in the ocean? Thanks.
You saw the viral video of the polar bear dying, right? Those things are excruciating to watch, Ron.
It's horrible. It is horrible to watch, but it is a face of reality right now. Climate change is a reality. These animals are either going to have to adjust or they're going to go extinct. That's one of the realities in the sense that when I say extinct, probably extinct in the wild, I think the captive breeding programs, they'll probably never be in captivity, but it's not the same thing. They're facing tremendous challenges, and we're going to see where this takes us as the next millennium comes along. But polar bears are certainly facing huge challenges.
Mike, you're on with Ron McGill of Zoo Miami. Go ahead.
Hey, Ron, what do you say to people who say that zoos are just animal prisons?
Well, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need any zoos. I'm a firm believer of that, but the reality is that most people are never going to be able to see an elephant walking across the Serengeti, a tiger hunting in a forest in India. Good zoos provide good windows into that world. And keep in mind that the overwhelming majority of animals you see in good zoos today are not animals that are ever taken out of the wild. These are animals that are born under human care, and they're kept that way. And what they do is they serve as ambassadors for animals in the wild. These animals are well cared for. These animals live longer lives than their conspecifics in the wild. And the fact of the matter is they plant seeds in people, especially kids, to learn to love wildlife. Zoos can play an important role that way. But having said that, you need to demand that when zoos spend millions of dollars on an exhibit for an animal, that they're allocating at least a portion of that money to protect those animals in the wild. Otherwise, they've got no reason to exist.
Can you give us, Mike, the video? What are the details of this video that we are playing for Ron Magill? Okay, Ron Magill's going to give us the play-by-play details.
I got it. I've opened the video. Here it is. It's looking into a shed. Oh, it's a beekeeper. This guy's all dressed up in a bee thing. He's going into a shed. These are not bees, ladies and gentlemen. These are hornets.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God, there's a lot of hornets.
Oh, no.
Holy jeez. You can see the paper nest. They're attacking him. You see him coming at the camera. Holy jeez.
He's got
the spray that's just going to tick him off even more. They're clouding up the camera. You can't even see through the camera. The big thing about hornets is they can repeatedly sting. They're not like bees. Bees can only sting once, and then they die. Oh, he picks out the whole thing. There's gazillions of these things. Holy God, this guy's got enough steel, because I would never walk into that. I don't care how many layers of a suit I'd have. That is a scary thought, to have thousands and thousands and thousands of hornets. There's no sound to this thing, but that sound must be horrific. There's a gazillion of these things. This guy just walking out. That's a bunch of tick-off
How many hornet stings would it take to kill somebody?
I would think that, depending on the person, if you have an allergy, it could be one sting. But normal person, probably 100 to 200 stings will put you in a hospital, and without some kind of care, you could die.
So that guy was headed straight toward death.
If he wasn't wearing a suit, absolutely he was going to die.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, Ron.
Don Batard.
I tell you, I have a knife, Swiss Army knife, and I'm ready to go.
All right.
Whatever you need. I can start a fire with 2 sticks, just like you hear about. I've done it.
Stugotz.
You've never done it.
I have done it.
No, you
surviving it.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
I want to get to more of this Giancarlo Stanton sound from this press conference yesterday, but Stugotz is suffering a grit of death punishment. Chris, are you finished drinking that soup, that cold tomato can soup?
Yeah, now I'm eating a sandwich.
Okay, so you went right to other food to clear your belly.
I can't eat.
All right, yeah. Stugotz is in a straitjacket all show. It's been a very difficult punishment, and Stugotz selected it very early. And this person writes in, and I'm curious what you guys think of this. If you're not familiar with the grid of death and the punishments, we have a suicide pool every week involving the NFL games, and if we lose, we have to do punishments. And today's Stugotz chose the straitjacket. And this woman writes in, writes in, the Zardos is terrible. Zardos is Sean Connery's character. How would you describe this, Cody? You've seen the picture. You have to do it. You're the one who has to do Zardos. How would you describe what the Sean Connery character in that movie is wearing?
Sort of medieval, almost, like something that a gladiator would have worn while riding one of those horse-pulled carriages.
But, explain to the people how little clothing is involved and how ridiculous the clothing is.
I think it's like a bathing suit type bottom with suspenders almost. Or
right. And how about the high leather boots?
Well, those I like. I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
Baby.
We didn't have to order those for you.
Damn right.
So this guy writes in, the Zardos is terrible, but I'd rather do that than the straitjacket. Maybe I'm totally on an island here, but even just 3 hours seems cruel and unusual. What has been the worst part, Stugotz, of having to wear that straitjacket all show?
I got to tell you, it's this slideshow that keeps coming across my computer that I cannot stop because I can't touch the computer, and it's driving me nuts, and I can't stop it. And this should be a grit of death punishment. Having to look at this slideshow for the entire 3 hours that we do the show, because I'd rather wear this straitjacket for a day than look at this slideshow.
What's on the slideshow?
I'm telling you, right now, here we go. Golic and Wingo, okay? They are bumping fist right before they go on the air. I have seen that 5 dozen times today. Now we go on the next one. It's Matt Ryan barking signals. I don't know why, but Matty Ice is up there, and he's just barking. He's calling an audible, and I've seen it 12 times. The next one is Jay Harris walking into the Ric Flair 30 for 30 with Sage Steele, and he's got a heavyweight belt around his shoulder, and he's got like a Ric Flair kind of jacket on.
Hold on. How many? Hold on.
Then there's just a Wisconsin football helmet.
Hold on. How many things are in the slideshow? Because I'm down for you outraged reading your computer screen for the rest of this segment. If there are 20 more of those things in the slideshow,
I think they're like, I don't know. I think it goes like maybe 11 or 12.
All right, let's do them all. Let's go ahead and just watch your computer on the radio.
There is one that I look forward to every single time it comes around. It's like you're in the desert and you need water, and there it is, and you rush to it, and that's the one I look forward to. You'll know when I get to it, okay? Right. You'll know when I get to that one, all right? Right now I'm staring at, I don't know who this person is, and you guys can continue with the show, but it's someone wearing a sweater that says Go Ducks on it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I just got a Georgia football player, number 8 on Georgia. Looks like he's breaking a tackle. Looks like he's about to score a touchdown.
What kind of slideshow is this?
I don't know, but now I have Oklahoma State's home field stadium, like the home stadium. Just a picture of the stadium during a game. Oklahoma State is on defense. Now I got Trey Wingo pointing at me. He has Louis Riddick to his right, and he has Matthew Hasselback to his left, and he is just pointing a finger at me and telling me to vote on something. There's the one. Oh, Tim Tebow. That's the one. It's Tebow on the set of the SEC Network. Then there's one of Dwight Howard.
All right, enough with this slideshow.
It's annoying.
Yeah. Let's go to Giancarlo Stanton here. Sound from this press conference. Mike, what would you choose to go with? Because he did not hold his tongue. If you want to, keep giving us more things.
Well, I mean, why is the Iowa State Cyclone men's basketball team on my computer screen? And Desmond Howard and David Pollock bumping fists on the set of College Game Day. Enough. And if I see this Rinaldi and Gene Wojciechowski thing one more time, I'm going to stick my head through this computer.
All right, we'll get to the Stanton sound. We'll get to that Stanton sound next.
Oh, there they are! There they are!
Don Batard.
The first thing with pea soup is the texture. I've had watery pea soup. It's awful. I've had gelatinous, thick pea soup. It's terrible. Pea soup, much like clam chowder, needs to have that consistency first. Pea soup on its own can be a little bit bland. It wants a fairly aggressive peppering and salting.
Stugotz.
Pea soup needs a fine dice of ham. Not bacon, not any other meat, not turkey. It needs a fine dice of ham. Pea soup scorches easily. You don't want to heat it on a high heat. You want to heat it on medium-low. And the key to pea soup, you want a ham bone for the stock you make to boil your peas.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Guillermo, can you put this on the poll, please? Would you be okay with letting Greg Cote get out of the Zardos costume if he releases his video of being drunk and falling into the bushes?
Wow.
That is a source of betrayal among him and his son. I want to know if the audience would be okay. I'm not even offering it to you yet, so don't even get all disappointed because I'm not offering it to you. I'm going to see if the audience is willing to offer you that exemption.
How badly do they want to see that video, or how badly do they want to see Greg as Zardos?
Yeah, we went out in the Marty party, and at the end of that night, Greg Cote fell into some bushes in front of his house. His son video recorded him. It's not that great a video. It's just Greg Cote falling into some bushes, but he has refused to share it with the audience.
I'd let him out of Zardos if he simply just had to look at Rinaldi and Gene Wojciechowski on the set of College Game Day for 24 straight hours. I'm serious, these two. I mean,
wait a minute. So I could just get out of whatever I don't want to do by filming a drunk video of myself?
No.
This doesn't seem fair.
I'm asking the audience.
He didn't ask Greg. He's just asking
Greg,
putting some feelers out there. Man.
That's right, some feelers. So Chris Sims is with us. We appreciate that he signed a 70-day contract with us to rank all of the quarterbacks who are better than Blake Bortles. He's got Blake Bortles ranked at 70th on his list. Austin Davis is better at 69. T.J. Yates at 68. Cardale Jones at 67. Brandon Whedon comes in at 66. 65 is C.J. Beathard. And 64 was the aforementioned Sean Mannion.
Poor Cody Kessler, who's 71.
Yeah, Cody Kessler, according to Chris Sims, is worse than Blake Bortles. But before we get to that, Blake Bortles has a strong defender in Leonard Fournette who strongly disagrees with Chris Sims.
Like I told y'all, man, Blake's coming around, man. To me, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks. You know, last year, it didn't have a running game, and now we have a running game, and I think he's showing his true colors.
What say you, Sims? Leonard
blah,
Fournette.
blah, 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 blah is what I say. I mean, He just felt guilty because early in the week he tweeted at people that I have an 11-man box, and that's why we can't get the run game going. So, little things like that. If you read between the lines, all year long, defenses have been saying, Blake Bortles can't beat us, but Leonard Fournette can. The head coach, Doug Marrone, at the end of the Arizona game goes, I got greedy. He got greedy throwing a 5-yard out route that was 10 yards short and threw it into the chest of Tyrone Matthew. So that puts it all into context for me. I don't really care what else is said after that.
But did you notice, far more importantly, at least for me, is how Leonard Fournette basically gave himself credit for Blake Bortles.
Yeah, he didn't have
He did, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes. He's top 5 now because he's got a running game. Because he's got Leonard Fournette.
I mean, and by doing that, he's also disrespecting Chris Ivory, who was there last year too, and did a pretty good job. So yeah, I hear you. That's a little weird.
All right, so let's get here without any further ado. It's very important. Number 63 on Chris Sims's top 70 list of top quarterbacks in the world. Number 63 is
Jake Ruddick, backup quarterback, Detroit Lions.
Wow, congratulations, Jake.
Wow, way to go, Jake.
Very good, Jake.
Go ahead and put it on the poll, Guillermo. Did you know that Jake, whatever his name, it was the backup quarterback for the Lions? I did not know that person was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
You had a story for us on Monday that we couldn't get to. You said you had a story for us that you wanted to tell us. Do you remember what it is?
Oh, yeah, yes, I do. Well, it came in lieu, of last week when you asked me about crazy things that were said to me, with the Aaron Rodgers and the Vanden Bosch
Well, hold
story.
on a second.
Hold on.
Let's play that sound. Allow us to play that sound, if you don't mind, real quick for the audience, because you then told us this story of Ray Lewis on the other sideline yelling at you, it's football time. It's just yelling, it's football time, and you getting a little bit scared. Let's go ahead and play that sound of Aaron Rodgers talking about crazy-ass Kyle Vanden Bosch.
Kyle was a very good player for a number of years. He used to wear red contacts, which was he didn't need because he was already teetered on the edge of insanity. So I remember, one time he got me, and he was kind of, he wasn't getting off me. And he's like, I got you good. I'm like, you hit me in the head, though. He goes, no way. And I was like, no, I think it's going to be a penalty. He goes, no. I got you. Also, another play involving him, we ran a 7-man protection. He looped from his end, and our fullback kind of blasted him a little bit. He wasn't looking, so Kyle thought it was a cheap shot. And instead of getting up and chasing the play down, he chased the fullback down and ended up running a route out to the right. It was like, I'll kill you.
Great story, man.
Really
is.
Yeah.
So what do you have for us, Chris?
Well, my story is because I wasn't thinking of guys that were on my actual team. So I'm a rookie. I'm in the facility for one of the first times ever in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers just won the Super Bowl a few months before that. I go into Gruden's office. He says hello to me. He goes, hey, make sure you get around and introduce yourself to the veteran players. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I bust into the locker room. I look ahead of me. Straight ahead, 12 o'clock, Warren Sapp's locker. I'm like, oh, great. I've been wanting to meet Warren Sapp.
Oh, no.
I stick out my hand. Yeah, you know where this is going. I stick out my hand. He goes, get the hell out of my face. Don't even talk to me until you won a game. And just totally knocked the cool out of my walk. But then from there on, made me his rookie Hayes. And I cleared this through Warren to make sure I could tell this story. But he, from that point on, I was his cracker. That's what he called me. Okay? You like that?
Wow.
And I always had to have a can of Skull.
Right.
I always had a can of Skull on me at all times. And I had to carry his bags up to his room the day before a game on road trips, and then he would throw a 20 on the floor like I was too prideful to pick it up, and I picked it up every time.
Attaboy!
But he'd look at me, and he'd walk in a meeting room and go, hey, cracker, and I'd have to throw him a can of Skull. Always had it on me except one time, and that was a fearful moment.
Wait a minute. What happened the one time you didn't have it on you?
So the one time I didn't have it on me is the actual day. You remember the day Warren Sapp skipped through the Washington Redskins pregame warm-ups, like literally skipped through them, stretching and stuff? Well, it was that morning. We're playing the Redskins, and I wake up that morning, and I look in my bag, and I go, oh, no, I got no cans of Skull. Holy cow. What am I going to do? And we have team breakfast, and I'm going, okay, well, I'm just going to wait in my room until the last 5 minutes of team breakfast. Hopefully Sap's not in there. I'll go in, I'll eat, and I'll get on the bus and try to avoid him until I can get to the stadium and get some more Skull. And so I hide. He's not in the room. I go down there. I eat breakfast. I'm in the corner. I'm going, oh, man, I'm going to make it. And all of a sudden, right as I'm getting done with my meal, comes through the door. Hey, Cracker. And he holds out his hand like he wants me to throw him something. And I just look at him like a beaten puppy, and I just shake my head like, no. Oh, my gosh, he berated me with four-lettered words and just embarrassed me in front of the whole team. But now looking back on it, great moments that I had.
Well, I just want to say for everyone involved, okay, that is unbelievably something that's not even allowed in football anymore. Everything about that was wrong, except that it's funny.
It's fun. It's funny. It's okay. I mean, I hope I'm not offending the white people out there with the word cracker. Okay, let me just clarify.
No. It's not even that part. No. I'm just talking about the bullying portions of it and the hazing portions of it. I'm talking about those portions of it that people like. That's not allowed anymore, and it's still funny. It's still funny.
No, and that's the bullying part that should be allowed. Taping me up to a field goal post or beating me with bars of soap, that shouldn't be allowed. But I look back at that now and go, damn, those were some great memories, and that was some of the best times of my life.
All right, Chris, you got to settle something for us because obviously you know Warren, and we know Warren, and we love Warren. We hope Warren doesn't get mad at us, and if he does get mad at us, hopefully he'll just get mad at Dan. But we've had people tell us that Warren Sapp has terrible breath. Can you confirm that rumor for us?
I cannot confirm that rumor because I promise you I haven't got that close to him to know how good his butt is. You hear how loud his voice is?
Yes, very good. And the time you tried to get close to him, he told you, I don't want you close to me.
He told me, get the hell out of your face until you win a game. That's what he told me. So, yeah, I wasn't trying to get too close to Sapp. Arm's length, and I'll throw the skull can to you.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for coming by.
Be good, guys. See ya.
See you, Chris.
Don Batard.
That guy's an idiot. He's not smart at life. He's not smart at books. He's not smart at people. He's not smart at interesting radio. He's not smart.
But that person has listened to the show every day for the last 6 years.
Should stop now.
Stugotz.
I wonder, though, if it's on us.
Not on us. We're great. Awesome.
Best hour ever.
Yes! It's been our best hour in 6 years.
Yes.
Double middle fingers to you, idiot moron jackal. Woo!
That hour just won a Marconi. What do you think of that? I don't even know what a Marconi is.
Really?
You ruined it.
We had a flow going.
We had it going. That guy's
pasta, right?
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Subscribe now for the 30 for 30 podcast in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. It's brought to you by Delta, making your travel experience informed, connected, and seamless. Keep climbing.
At Batard shows how you reach us on Twitter. I love Stugotz moving these live spots around with his elbows in a straitjacket. How badly did you underestimate this entire straitjacket experience?
Pretty badly, man. It's been difficult. I'm not listen, like, we laugh for a living, we have fun, we joke around, we talk about sports. It's been restrictive. I mean, I discounted how important my hands and fingers were. And I probably shouldn't have. I probably should know. But you take these things for granted. I'm telling you. You take your hands and your fingers, right, Greg? You really take these things for granted.
Which brings me to Central Florida football. You guys have betrayed that football team because they have a defensive menace on their team who has one hand.
Yeah.
And frankly, I failed him. Because I voted the UCF quarterback for Heisman Trophy, and I should have voted for that kid.
Really?
I should have voted for Shaquem Griffin, and I blew it.
Wow.
Because a dude was playing very well on an undefeated team, best defensive player, and he's got one hand. You know what? I'll give him that trophy. And you go ahead and argue with me. All these power conferences with all their players, all their recruits, all these great players. In fact, I blew it by not creating a campaign for that guy.
Right.
Like for not actually bringing attention. Do you guys realize there's a player here? If this was happening in Alabama, if Alabama had a linebacker, he's only at Central Florida because he's got one hand. He's otherwise an athlete who would be at Alabama. He's got one hand.
Right.
If I told you that person was playing for Alabama, that person would be getting Heisman votes. The reason he's not is because a lot of people don't even know that Central Florida has a defensive menace who is playing with one hand.
But wouldn't win. You're just saying would get a lot more votes. Wouldn't.
I think
if you had a wide receiver in Alabama with one hand, then perhaps they would win.
If
right?
you saw this kid play and you saw him as the leader on defense, sacking the quarterback, causing fumbles with his nub, intercepting the ball in coverage.
The one flaw is that UCF wins games 45-43. They're not known for defense.
No, but he was the defensive player of the year in the conference last year, and he was just as good this year. And, I mean, who's going to do the polls with Stugotz in a straitjacket? Is Guillermo going to do the polls? You want to update the polls, Guillermo?
Yeah, Bill's going to do them today. The Batard Show Twitter poll is brought to you by Upside.com, giving all business travelers the gift of a better travel experience this holiday season. Check them out today. It's Upside.com.
Lots of polls today, Dan. First one, what's more likely to happen in a game? Tom Brady goes one healthy quarter without a single passing yard, or a dragon comes out of the sky and eats Tom Brady during play? 83% said dragon.
He threw for 0 yards in the first quarter yesterday.
Yep.
Does it sound like much of a punishment to have to drink cold tomato soup from a can? 52% of the audience said no.
Wow.
Does it seem like all the guys are doing one show and Greg Cote is doing a different one? 93% of the audience said yes.
That is the most lopsided.
Wow, that is a lopsided. Greg, the audience, look at it. Greg's insulted by that.
Off.
Greg's insulted by that. We never have things that are that lopsided.
What is Dan more of, preachy or screechy?
That's a close one.
58% of the audience said preachy.
Ooh.
Thank you. What?
I think.
Would you be okay with letting Greg Cote out of the Zardos costume if he releases his drunken video?
That's an important one.
56% of the audience said yes.
Wow. I think you got to let that thing sit for a little longer, though. Okay? Just wait. Wait a little longer on that one.
Negotiate or?
Well, no, I want to see what the results are like a little bit later because you just posted that one up there, and I want more people to have the.
I'm still surprised that Zardos. Everyone wants to see us in this Zardos costume. I think the big payoff would have been if I had gotten it. Right? If I had gotten it, that would have been the visually most shameful.
I think second place though is Cote. Man, that's pretty.
Cote getting it is pretty good. And so Cote is going to do the Zardos because the Patriots lost last night and he had them in the suicide pool.
But again, you're not offering this out to Greg here. You are not offering. You're putting feelers out there with the audience.
Well, I'd be curious at his level of interest in a trade, in a swap. First of all, shipping container. What do you guys want? Like if I told you, what you want to see Greg Zardos or you want to see the Greg video release? Which would you prefer, Chris?
Well, I've seen the video.
No,
so
release. Want it released for the audience.
I want him in Zardos.
Thanks for thinking of yourself instead of the audience. That's always good, just like your father. Billy.
It seems like we've been building up this Zardos, and to have no one do it would kind of stink.
Huh. Interesting.
I'm kind of with Guillermo on that. I am.
So I shouldn't offer it? What if I did offer it? Which way would you go?
You never know.